So, in our last explainer, we got into the incredible growth in brain size among the great apes. This time, we're shifting our focus to something just as important, but maybe a little less obvious: the teeth. We're going to be talking about something called the Honing complex, a really crucial anatomical feature that tells us so much about our closest relatives, and, more importantly, about the huge split in the road between their evolutionary path and our own.
You know, it's pretty wild to think about, but the story of how we became social creatures, a huge part of it is etched right into our mouths. When you compare the teeth of our primate relatives to our own, you find these massive clues about how our earliest ancestors behaved. It's a story told not just by the features we have, but by the ones we've lost. Specifically, a pretty formidable dental weapon.
Okay, so first things first, let's break down what we're even talking about. We need to get a handle on this specific bit of anatomy. It's a specialized feature you see in a lot of great apes, but one that is completely, totally absent in us and our direct ancestors.
So what is it exactly? Well, it's not just about having a big, pointy tooth. The real magic is that it's a self-sharpening system. I mean, seriously, think about that. A blade that literally sharpens itself every single time you use it. That's what the Honing complex is. It's this perfect pairing of two teeth working together to keep that upper canine razor sharp.
And what's so cool is how it all fits together. It's this incredible three-part system. First, you've got the weapon itself, that big dagger-like upper canine. Then, acting as the sharpening stone, is the lower premolar. It's not really for chewing, it's what we call a sectorial premolar. It has this single angled cusp that shears against the upper canine every time the jaw closes. And finally, you have the diastema. That's just a fancy word for the gap in the lower teeth. That gap is absolutely essential because without it, that giant canine wouldn't have anywhere to go and the jaw couldn't fully close.
Right, so why? Why would any animal need this elaborate, built-in, self-sharpening weapon in its mouth? Well, as it so often does in the story of evolution, the answer comes down to social behavior and, you guessed it, competition.
And here's the crucial point. The Honing complex isn't really about eating, it's for fighting. In species like chimps and gorillas, males use these absolutely massive canines for display, to intimidate rivals, and to fight over mates. That's why the canines are so much bigger in males than in females. It's a textbook example of sexual dimorphism. And yeah, for sure, they're also incredibly handy if a leopard decides to show up.
But this is where the story gets really interesting for us. Because when we start looking at the fossil record of our own family tree, the hominins, we see something dramatic happen, something pivotal. The weapon just vanishes.
And this isn't some minor tweak. This marks a fundamental split, a huge fork in the evolutionary road that separates us from the other apes. The fossil evidence is crystal clear. Early hominins were ditching their weaponized canines, and that tells us something profound was changing about the way they lived.
When you put the two jaw types side by side like this, the difference is just, wow, it's stark. For the hominins, the canines shrink way down. That lower premolar, it's not needed for sharpening anymore, so it completely changes its shape. It grows a second cusp, becoming bicuspid, and gets a new job, chewing. And that diastema, that gap for the giant canine, well, it's not needed anymore either, so it just closes up. The whole system is gone.
You see, this wasn't just one single thing that happened. It was more like an evolutionary cascade, like a set of dominoes falling. As the pressure to have these big, weapon-like canines eased up, it kicked off a whole chain reaction. The entire dental setup was suddenly free to reorganize itself into something much more like what we have in our own mouths today.
So what does this all mean for our ancestors? What's the bigger picture here? Well, the disappearance of this one anatomical complex had these massive ripple effects that touched everything, from what they ate, to how they behaved, to their entire social world.
I mean, the implications here are just huge. Losing these dental daggers strongly suggests that intense, violent competition between males was becoming less of a thing. Maybe cooperation was becoming more important. Maybe different social structures like pair bonding were starting to emerge. And at the same time, this change literally freed up the jaw. Instead of being locked into that up and down shearing motion, our ancestors could now grind their food from side to side. And that opened up a whole new menu of tougher, more fibrous plants. This was, without a doubt, a critical step on the path to becoming human.
So you see, losing these fighting teeth wasn't just a simple change in anatomy. It was a sign of a revolution in behavior that set our ancestors on their own unique path. In our next explainer, we're going to learn more about upright trunk posture in great apes. It's another key piece of evidence that's going to help us understand the incredible story of human evolution.